In November 1932, the Australian Army deployed a major, 2 soldiers, and 10,000 rounds of ammunition to fight a war. Their enemy was 20,000 emus. The emus won. Western Australia. November 1932. The Great Depression was 3 years old. Australian wheat farmers in the Campion district, near Perth, had been promised government subsidies for their harvest. The harvest was struggling. The price of wheat had collapsed. Many of the farmers were World War I veterans who had been settled on the land in a post-war resettlement program. Then the emus arrived. Emus are large, flightless Australian birds. Adult emus stand close to 2 meters tall and weigh between 30 and 40 kilograms. They can run at speeds approaching 50 kilometers per hour. They are native to most of the Australian mainland. In the spring of 1932, after their breeding season in inland Australia, an estimated 20,000 emus migrated to the western coastal regions in search of water and feeding grounds. The freshly irrigated wheat farms of the Campion district were, from an emu's perspective, ideal habitat. The birds arrived in flocks. They ate wheat. They knocked down fences. The fences had been protecting the wheat from rabbits, the previous pest. The broken fences let the rabbits in. The damage was multiplicative. The farmers, many of them veterans, asked their representatives in Canberra for help. The Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce, agreed to deploy the military. The deployment was Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery, 2 non-commissioned officers, and 2 Lewis machine guns. The Lewis gun was a World War I-era light machine gun firing the British .303 rifle round. Each gun was provided with 5,000 rounds of ammunition. The plan: shoot the emus. The farmers would assist. November 2, 1932. Major Meredith and his men arrived in the Campion district. They identified a flock of approximately 50 emus. The men fired. The emus, contrary to expectation, did not gather into a tight target. They scattered. The .303 rounds, designed for human-sized targets, often passed through emus without immediately killing them. The emus that were hit kept running. The men reported that they had killed only a small portion of the flock. Major Meredith later wrote that the emus were extraordinarily difficult to bring down with rifle fire. Over the following days, the men attempted ambushes. They tried mounting one of the Lewis guns on the back of a truck. The truck could not match the speed of the emus across the rough terrain. The mounted gun jammed. Press coverage in Australia turned skeptical, then mocking. By November 8, after roughly a week of operations, Major Meredith reported that approximately 50 to 200 emus had been killed, depending on which estimate you accepted, out of the original 20,000. The Australian Senate, in a session on November 8, raised the question of whether the operation should continue. Defence Minister Pearce ordered the withdrawal. 8 days later, on November 12, after additional pressure from the farmers, the operation was reinstated. Major Meredith returned to the field. By December 10, when this second campaign ended, Meredith reported that approximately 986 emus had been killed, with an estimated 9,860 rounds expended. The figure works out to roughly 10 rounds per emu, far higher than the per-target ammunition expenditure of any conventional military operation. Meredith, in his report, also noted that the surviving emus had begun to display unusual coordination. He described the formation of small groups led by what he called a leader emu that would warn the others of approaching humans. He compared the birds, in writing that has since become famous in Australian military history, to the Zulu impi, a reference that strikes modern readers as both strange and revealing. Australian wheat farming communities continued to lobby for emu control measures throughout the 1930s. The military was not deployed again. Instead, a bounty system was introduced. Between 1934 and the late 1940s, a few 100,000 emus were killed under the bounty. The emu population recovered. Today, the emu is the second largest living bird species in the world after the ostrich, and is featured on the Australian coat of arms. The coat of arms placement, established in 1908, predates the war. The Emu War of 1932 is, in modern Australian historiography, treated mostly as a curiosity. Most general Australian history surveys mention it. Most military histories include a footnote. The episode is real, documented in army records, and was reported in the Australian press at the time. An army was deployed to fight 20,000 birds. The army went home. The birds did not.